Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to a crazy and spectacular game from the FIDE World Blitz Championship in 2023. We know of course that Magnus again won everything. He won the FIDE World Rapid Chess Championship but also the FIDE World Blitz Chess Championship with a great performance. Congratulations again to Magnus Carlsen. He was simply the strongest player in the tournament. And from the FIDE World Blitz Chess Championship I've sorted out this spectacular game. We have here Magnus against Yangyi in a crazy pattern of defense in a crazy Russian game, and I've sorted out this game especially because this game I think had everything. First of all, we'll see a beautiful theoretical novelty in move 5 introduced to us here by Magnus Carlsen in the pattern of defense, but then later cool middle game strategies, cool middle game tactics, and then the ending was simply breathtaking because Magnus pulled off almost, I would say, a stockfish endgame with the crazy tactic. Even the commentators could not spot this move. They were really surprised when Magnus Carlsen pulled off a crazy tactic in the end. So put your seatbelts on and enjoy in the wild game here played by Magnus Carlsen. So with the white pieces, Magnus opened with the move e4. We have here e5 by Yangyi, and as I mentioned before, also in our other games that we have covered so far, the tempo of this blitz games is 3+2, so 3 minutes you have on the clock plus 2 seconds increment per move. So it makes even this game crazier because when you think about it, how Magnus is playing these games in fast time formats, it's really almost impossible. So here after move e5 we have knight to f3 by Magnus hitting the pawn. Here Yangyi does the same. We have the pattern defense, the Russian game, knight takes e5, d6 kicking with the knight, and after knight to f3, knight to e4 here Magnus plays already a tricky new move, a certain theoretical novelty. This move is actually very helpful maybe in the later stage of the game because in some lines of the pattern defense but also in some other lines of any openings you can get simple pin by the move bishop to g4, which is sometimes unpleasant to handle. So h3, a calm move, a waiting move, a delaying move here by Magnus Carlsen. Waits also now what Yangyi is going to make here in the center of the board. Here Yangyi plays d5, simply supports the knight on e4. Magnus kicks away the knight to d6, and now c4. Interesting line, new again, good move here by Magnus Carlsen because it wouldn't be possible maybe to push the pawn on c4 in some other lines, but now the knight on d6 is standing in the way, so there's no threat that the queens are going to be traded off in the next couple of moves. So good move by Magnus. He's at least getting his spaces here on the 4th rank. We have bishop to e7 because if you play here d takes c4, you could maybe play knight to c6, but now with knight to c3 this knight is standing in the way of a potential trades of queens, but it's also standing in the way of a potential maybe new aggressive move by black, maybe bishop to b4, pinning the knight on c3. So that's why c4 already very tricky ideas here by Max. Bishop to e7, c takes d5, kingside castling. Here Yangyi temporarily sacrificed the pawn, but created now of course a messed up pawn structure. These are double pawns and they can be of course attacked in the later stage here by black. So nothing dramatically happened so far. Yangyi castles, of course notices that Magnus is staying with the king a little bit too long, so now rook to e8 is of course a huge tactical threat against white. So that's why Magnus normally develops with knight to c3, b5, also threatening b4, then of course deflect the knight from the defense of the pawn. We have a3 preventing b4, bishop to b7 hitting now, and the pawn on d5, and Magnus advances the pawn on d4, is trying of course somehow to get the e5 square and keep the position in the center really compact. If Magnus somehow manages to play knight to e5 in good fashion, then I think black could have already huge positional problems in the game. We have a6 by Yangyi, will protects of course also his b5 pawn. We have bishop to e2, knight to d7, and now knight to e5 by Magnus. You don't want to take, of course, knight takes e5 is game over because after d takes e5 now the pawn structure is healthy again. We have here two connected pawns in the center of the board, so this is not working. So after knight to e5, bishop to f6 was played by Yangyi, putting more pressure against the knight on e5. Magnus continues with knight to c6. Here Magnus lost most of his time because he probably was not satisfied with the potential e-file attacks. Also what could have been played was the move bishop to f4, but still it's complicated to defend this. Knight to b6, we hit this one, you play bishop to f3, then knight to c4 is going to happen, rook to e8 in the later stage of the game. So Magnus was probably unsatisfied with the activity that black could also gain. So that's why with this move knight to c6 instead of the bishop to f4, Magnus releases simply the pressure a little bit in the center of the board, forces now basically black to give up the bishop for a knight, d takes c6 of course by Magnus, and now there are new two weaknesses again, although these are not double pawns anymore, but still I would say these are weak pawns, because the d4 pawn will be attacked now many times, and even if you connect it here to this pawn on c6, there is always this idea, bishop to c3, getting rid of the key defender of d5. So it's very hard now to defend all of these pawns here by white. So in the game, knight to b6 by Yangyi, we have Carlsen by Magnus finally, knight to f5, hitting the pawn on d4, we have a d5, of course. Now bishop to c3, that was the tactic that we have talked about. After b takes c3, now comes the first critical moment of the game. I would say Yangyi played here really an awesome game so far, but now he makes his first mistake. He plays now knight takes d5, and it was much better to release the pressure, even with the potential trades of queens. Queen to d5 would be here much better for black, in potential line. Maybe queen to d5, knight to d5. You have to protect. Look how strange now Magnus Carlsen's structure is. There is this problem, c6, c3, a3. All of these pawns would be an object of the attack by black. You can maybe try here rook to e8, attack the bishop, bishop to f3, knight to f6. So these moves, for instance, by black are so easy to play because you have always clear targets. You always know where to attack. So I think after potential queen to d5, Magnus would also have a tough time for sure. But Yangyi took with the knight, and from this point on, I think the game becomes a one-way ticket here in white favor. So we have here bishop to f3, knight to b6, we have bishop to f4. Now you see the potential trades of queens is actually going into white favor, because the queen is also defending the weak pawn on c7. So now Magnus has a new target, has an object where to attack. So that's why I think here white should be much better. Knight to d6, bishop takes d6, queen to d6, queen to d6, c takes d6. But finally the pawn on c6, that was, I think, a weakness in the white position, becomes actually the main strength, because it's a mobile pawn again. There is this bishop that's lined up on this diagonal hitting the rook. There is now a new weakness on d6, and as I said, the knight has a tough time to be somehow included into the game. We have a rook from f to d1, Magnus hits the pawn. Here Yangyi gets out of this tactical mess of the light square bishop. Here we have rook to d8, rook to d4. Magnus is of course trying to double up rooks on the d file, hitting the d6 weakness, d5. Yangyi advances the pawn, but keeps now, which is very important, all of his pawns on light squares, and the pawns can be of course attacked now by the light square bishop. So Magnus was provoking this move d5, and all of these pawns are suddenly again objects of white's attack. We have now after move d5, that was now the critical moment that I've talked about. Now Magnus Carlsen pulled off the impossible move, a move that stunned also the commentators. The commentator was like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you doing this move? Nothing spectacular about this move, but this was actually the only move that could here win the game for white. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the best idea here for white. I will not say white moves and wins the game, but white moves and black has a tough time to play this game. That's I think the sentence that we want to say here. So what's the best continuation? Okay, here Magnus pulled off the possible a4, and everyone was okay. I play knight a4. What are you having here? I'm going to stop this pawn, but this move a4 was really brilliant. It's a stockfish move. Because that's the only move that is keeping white at least winning chances. Every other move I think is equal or in black's favor. A4 really stunner of the game. And the only moves that you can play here is maybe b takes a4. In the game, knight takes a4 was played by Yangyi, which was again a new mistake. If you play b takes a4, then rook to b1 is going to happen, and if you protect it maybe here with rook to b8, then rook to b4 is simply winning the game. So we would be forced here to play a passive move, knight to c8, and now we simply pick up this one. All again a6, a4 are weaknesses, so I would say again this should be winning here for white. The only way after move a4 to survive this is actually to play rook to c8 after something like a5, kicking with the knight. You can lose maybe this one, but after knight to e5, I think black can have this pawn back. Here there was maybe this potential sequence of tactics. Then after bishop to a6, knight to a6, rook to a6. It's equal material. Probably white should be again slightly better because this pawn is very advanced, but this was the only way here for Yangyi to survive the attack. But after move a4, what Yangyi played was the move knight to a4, and this was also the move that was suggested by the commentators. But now comes the cool but also mean plan here by Magnus Carlsen. Magnus pull off now the move c4, sacrifices simply another pawn. If you play, of course, b takes c4, then the knight is hanging on a4. What could you do? You could, of course, maybe here try knight to c5, but then after rook to d5, knight to e6, again I think wins simply too much material. So there is also the a6 weakness, so this is not working. You don't have time to trade off here maybe the rooks, because then the pawns are going to be connected again and they're mobile. So again, a messed up game here for black. After move c4, here Yangyi played d takes c4, and it seems so that Magnus is going crazy here because Magnus is just giving back pawns. But now Magnus plays a beautiful rook takes d8, rook takes d8, and now c7. This was now the ultimate crazy move, because after something like, I don't know, rook to c8, rook to d1 is simply winning the game. If you take, of course, then you get a back rank checkmate. If you don't react, if you play something like h6 in order, or g6 to create breathing spaces, then rook to d8, and you're forced here to trade off the rooks, and c takes d8 comes with a new promotion of the queen. The game is over. So that's why after c7, rook to f8, Magnus goes with bishop to b7, prepares now c8. This pawn is really the craziest pawn. Here Yangyi played now the move c3. We have c8, rook takes c8, rook takes c8, b4 by Yangyi, and now after bishop to f5, knight to c5, Magnus simply attacked the knight again. Yangyi tried g6, but even if you try here knight to b3, then we simply take out this pawn, and also in endgame I think nothing gained here for black. After move rook to a5, g6, Magnus takes the knight, Yangyi takes the pawn, and now a very important move here by Magnus, of course. Magnus is the endgame master, plays the correct king to f1, gets the king closer to the action. Now the rook and the king can, of course, stop this pawn storm that's going here on the queen side. We have b3, and now after king to c3, it was in this position here. Yangyi resigned. So crazy game by Magnus. This stunner was really spectacular. a4, disconnecting the pawn chain. We saw after b takes a4, also very complicated to play. Maybe only way, as I said, to play rook to c8, allowing here Magnus Carlsen to temporarily take out this pawn, going then afterwards for this pawn. This was the only way, but very complicated to see, of course, in a 3+2 chess game. So crazy game. I hope that you liked it. I really liked it a lot. This was almost a perfect game here by Magnus Carlsen. He didn't play here any inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders. Really till perfection, although he chose to play maybe a slightly worse opening line in the beginning with the move h3, but he surprised his opponent, which is also a good strategy sometimes, going out of this familiar opening lines of the pattern of defense. Cool game here by Magnus, and as we said, the deserved winner of the FIDE World Blitz Chess Championship in 2023. So okay, if you want to see some other content here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our commented chess games, but also our commented chess games played by computers. Here are the links of our playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.